All right, welcome to the Straight Red Card. Today on the show, we have somebody you probably already know because he has one of the biggest followings on YouTube as a soccer show. In fact, I can't even think of another show that has more viewers. So today with us is the one and only, the Petradamus, the 11 Yanks man, Pete Doubt It. Thank you, Pete, for coming on.
No, thanks for having me, man. This is awesome. I feel like I finally made it now. You know, I got onto the Straight Red Card.
Well, you know,
not everybody can say that too. So
that's true.
Yeah, it's a privilege.
We really don't like to have guests on our show. It throws a loop in our vibe. Sometimes it does, not always. It's been great so far. So we're happy. I think you are our fourth guest. So this is cool. Pretty exciting for us. Well, since our comeback. So we were at Big Soccer for a long time, as you probably know, and we had all that was just our thing. All our shows were guests for the most part. And now we're just on our own. And at this point, there is no way we're having a lot of those guests back because, well, we're kind of in the blackballed list.
Oh, no. Join the club.
Yeah, I know. That's why I kind of brought it up. So is this what you thought this was going to end up being when you started your show?
You mean with the YouTube channel and all that?
Yeah, like, did you know it was going to become this big and this sort of controversial in a way?
No, I did not actually. Honestly, I started it because I've always listened to like soccer podcasts. And I thought, you know, I liked some of them. Some of them I thought just sort of skirted around the edges of issues. And I thought, you know, in other sports, you have some pretty hard hitting, you know, analysis, right? Not just, you know, in soccer around the world, but even in American sports. And I just thought maybe I should do a podcast to give my thoughts on some of these things. But the podcast world seemed pretty saturated to me already. And I felt that, you know, YouTube, there wasn't a lot of, you know, American soccer specific content. And so I thought during the pandemic, I thought, oh, let me do, you know, just a couple episodes and see if people like it, you know? Yeah. And that's just how it started, I guess.
Why do you think it caught on so hot, so fast too? It was so fast. Cause I remember I wrote you and I'm like, hey, Pete, I really like your show. I just caught it like in an indiscriminate way. And I'm like, well, we're working on bringing our show back and I'm building the website. You know, maybe I'll ask Pete if he'll let me put his show on my website. And you did, which was really awesome. So, you know, I like to take like the 2% credit for your growth.
No, I think you were
1%.
Honestly, when you messaged me, I was like, he thinks my show is good enough to go on his website. I have made it. And I was like, this is awesome. Yeah. And I think you helped to drive a lot of traffic to the videos, which, you know, created awareness. And I hope by doing this show, I can drive more traffic to you guys too. Because, you know, you're one of the guys that like, I think should have a bigger voice, you know, in the soccer landscape. And I'm excited for what you guys do.
Oh, I appreciate that. No, we'd like to have a bigger voice. We'd like to get back to where we were in 2008. It's going to be a long uphill climb, but that's okay. We're fine with that. So, I mean, we had Tactical on, and he's had a lot of like sort of these tweet debates with some of the big boys, as you well know at this point. Have you had those kind of run-ins yet, Pete?
No, not with the big, quote unquote, big boys. I did have something that sort of exploded a couple months ago surrounding Sebastian Lletget.
Oh boy, yeah.
Golden
I don't know
boy.
if you remember that. I was saying that he shouldn't be involved with national teams. I didn't think he offered enough. And some people who disagreed with me had some very strong ways of disagreeing. So it sort of exploded from there. And I think became sort of the Twitter discussion of the day on US soccer Twitter. I think that's the only real intense, heavy debate that I remember getting into.
Yeah. And you've kind of figured out along the way, I'm guessing, that if you are a critic, like a real free, like we are, I mean, we don't work for Big Soccer anymore. We don't need to shut up anymore. We don't need to hold back. And you just get the feeling that, you know, there's a force out there, right? There's a force out there and they don't like this very much. Have you gotten that vibe yet?
Yes. Yes, I have. I definitely have. And some of it is like, I guess, more establishment related for sure. Yeah. You know, people within the establishment or at least connected to the establishment that don't like criticism. And then there are just people on Twitter or just soccer fans in general who think that criticism it's, you know, is a form of like unpatriotism almost. And like, you don't love American soccer if you criticize anything about it, you know, and that baffles me a lot. It really does.
I think they figured it out when they realized who your benefactor was. You and
Filipos.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we should probably put a disclaimer that
Rocco
Camiso, the new sponsor of Filippo and 11 Yanks, and for all we know, your guys' show too. How come we don't know that you guys aren't Rocco plants?
Actually, as you might have found out from Brett's message in the other show the other day, we're sponsored by Peter North.
Oh, that's right.
Canada.
That's right.
I was like, I mean, when I rewatched it, because I wasn't watching live, Brett was, and I was like, come on, Tactical. You don't remember Brett? You only did 3 hours worth of shows with him, for Christ's sake. So yeah, I was hoping Tactical would know that was
in
Brett.
Fairness, I don't have a TSRC logo for my picture. I'm just an anonymous person with the name Brett Corbett. So
yeah, that's fair. I
pretty
guess.
Easy to overlook me.
You guys got a lot of Bretts that follow your show.
There are a lot of Bretts.
Yeah,
it's a very American soccer fan name.
It is a very common name. Now, have you figured out who Peter North is yet, Pete?
As I understand it, he's a Canadian porn star. Is that
That
right?
is correct, sir. You bingo. Yes, that is who he is. So yeah, that's our sponsor. And unfortunately, I think he's in some legal trouble right now.
He doesn't pay us very big, we'll put it that way.
Yeah, something with his wife, and she's got like a block on him, so he can't come within 100 yards of her or something like that.
Oh boy.
Anyhow, great. Yeah,
porn star having marital issues.
Who would? What? That's just on.
You were the director of that movie, Peter. Come on.
No, let's not. No, let's not do that. Although his wife was a porn star, yes. So, all right, let's start jumping into soccer because we usually do that bullshit. We usually bullshit for like 10 minutes before we actually start talking about soccer.
I love it.
So we already talked about your show. We talked about how you got there. I used to say, I swear to God, Pete's from Minnesota. Okay, so we're not jumping into soccer yet, but you're not. Can you tell people kind of your sort of, and if I'm sure we have a lot of crossover, so a lot of people are already going to know this and they've already asked you this, but you grew up all over the world.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Thailand to American parents. Dad is originally from Dallas. Mom is from Washington State, a little small town called Spokane. And I was born and raised there. And then after that, I moved to England to study soccer, to study coaching, because I was a good player growing up. But I knew sort of instinctively I wasn't good enough to ever go pro, or if I did, at such a low level that I couldn't make a living doing it. So I thought, well, I love soccer so much. What is the next best version of that? And that would be coaching. So I got my degree. I went to the Anglia Ruskin University in Cambridge, England, and got a bachelor's degree of science and coaching for performance in football. And from there, got a job working in India for Arsenal soccer schools, and ended up moving to New Delhi and spending about 6 years coaching young players all the way up to adults in India, as well as, doing assistant coaching for a second division team in India.
Wow.
And then after that, I spent a very brief amount of time in the Middle East and then moved back to the US to Chicago, did some coaching there, and then eventually had a career change and ended up becoming an actor and now living in Los Angeles. That's kind of the short version.
Man, the whole leap to actor thing, that must have been like, I mean, how do you just jump up and decide to do that?
It's a weird story. I had a friend who was an actor. He was a theater actor in Chicago. And I had been doing, I had done school plays. In fact, when I was in England, I minored in drama. While I was studying coaching. I always loved doing theater and storytelling and stuff. So I sort of minored in it, but I never thought of it as a serious career for me. Yeah. But anyways, I had a friend in Chicago who, would come to me and he would ask me to help him go over his lines for his shows. And I would get really into it and play different characters opposite him and then one day he got sick and couldn't do his show. And it was a smaller show. So he didn't have a backup, a guy to replace him, And so he basically told the director, my friend Pete is going to stand in for me for a couple of nights, and didn't tell me.
Oh, shit.
You're due there in 45 minutes, man.
Dude, it was crazy. He calls me one day. He's like, man, I'm really sick tonight. You already know all the lines because you've been helping me with this show. Can you just do it? And I said, no. And he's like, it's too late. I already told the director you could.
As I understand it, that's exactly how Peter North got into porn too.
That would not surprise me. Thank God I made friends with an actor and not a porn star. Otherwise, who knows where I'd be today.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, things can turn quickly. All right. Well, let's get to this soccer thing that we all talk about. We're done with the window, Pete. And I think all of us were in unison saying 7 to 9 points. We got 6. How are you handling that? I mean, is that okay with you? Are you able to swallow that?
I mean, no. To be frank, no. I mean, you could take 6 if we had gotten 7 to 9 in the last window, but no. I mean, we have to be honest. We completely botched that Panama game, and that's on Greg, right? We can't just accept that 6 points is enough. I was telling somebody, I think it was a couple of weeks ago in one of the Twitter spaces, that we have to set the bar for this team based on the talent that this team has. We can't lower the bar of expectation because of the incompetence of the coach. We have to set the bar here. And if the team doesn't meet that, then we can have discussions about why that's happening, right? But I don't think we should lower our expectations because A, the coach is incompetent, or B, this team is young. That's when I've heard a lot about how young this team is, and therefore it's okay for them to underperform. I think we keep that bar high, and so I don't think 6 points is good enough.
Well, the other excuse is it's CONCACAF. CONCACAF on the road is different than anything else. So
sure.
But that's getting old and tired at this point.
It is.
And
it is.
The reason that we keep hearing young, if you saw, did you see Berhalter's post game? I mean, they brought
which one? The one after Panama?
Yeah.
No,
after Costa Rica.
I did not see it yet.
It came out today.
And they just hammered it with this is the average age for the team was 22 years of age.
200 days. Yeah.
Whoever that moron is that they've hired to sit next to Greg and say dumb things like he also said 20 players got starts.
25 in this window, which is in this cycle, which is he said it was the most in U.S. men's national team history. And then he corrected himself and said, no, it's the third most.
That was Peter. That wasn't. What a silly stat
to bring up.
It wasn't Greg. That was the moron sitting
whoever runs the press conferences.
Michael Kammerman. He's the press officer for U.S. Soccer.
Okay, so I just called him a moron. There we go.
And he happens to be coming on our show in a week
pass now, Derek.
That's okay. I haven't had a press pass since 2007.
It's been in the mail for a while. So
the rejection. The rejection.
Only you lived in Chicago.
We're both close enough to Chicago. But the interesting thing is, just based on those 2 quotes alone, that was read by the press officer for U.S. Soccer. What does that tell you about what narrative they're trying to spin?
Well, please accept our mediocrity and celebrate it, right? That's to me the narrative, because what they will not admit is that this is the most talented generation the U.S. has ever had in its history.
Amen.
Right? And there's no discussion about that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Come on. When Jurgen Klinsmann was in charge, we had Graham Zusi, as our starting right back, right?
Yeah.
We had that Houston, winger, Brad. I don't remember his second name. He went to the World Cup in 2014. Is Brad something? But the level of talent back then was so low, and we still finished top of the. It wasn't the octagonal. It was the what was it called back then again?
Jesus fucking Christ, that's killing me.
You got his name?
Brad Davis.
Brad Davis.
Yeah. I was like, Brad Davis, was killing me.
Brad Davis, who could never beat anybody 1v1, wasn't very good with the ball, had a decent cross every now and then, but that was the kind of player we were dealing with, and we still managed to get results. Now we're dealing with Champions League, Europa League, top 5 league level players who are starting for their teams week in and week out. And no one wants, not no one, but the federation doesn't want to admit that means we should up our expectations for this team.
Yeah.
They're instead talking about youth and CONCACAF being hard.
I was to say, but Pete, those players that are starting week in, week out for Champions League and Europa League teams are 19 years old and they're inexperienced to playing against CONCACAF teams. So,
yeah, I mean, well, truth is, most of them are actually 20 to 24. So they're not like teenagers. There are one or two teenagers certainly in there. But again, it's just the gap in talent between the US and everybody else in CONCACAF, except for Mexico, is so wide that we should be expecting to win the vast majority of our games, home and away, and look competent and cohesive, you know, in doing so. Because, you know, Panama beat us 1-0 with, you know, a lot of heart and spirit and fight, but not a lot of talent, you know?
Right. No,
well,
and you know, just to back that, go ahead, Brett.
I was just continuing with the youth thing right there real quick. No, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Oh, okay. It looked like you froze for a second there.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
My internet connectivity is unstable apparently. But in that press conference, Berhalter had a quote on there where he says people talking about the youth and everything like that, but people think that this is going to be easy. They think that this is going to be a cakewalk. That we're just going to walk in with the youngest roster in history and breeze through our games. Like, nobody thought about that. Nobody thought that it was just going to be a breeze. They knew it was going to be challenging matches, but we all thought that we had the talent that we could go in first window and get 9 points. We thought we can come in this window and get 9 points. It's not unheard of. And we had the challenge, and you could see it against the two home games this window. We had arguably the youngest lineup ever, and we absolutely dominated those games.
Yeah.
So what's the big difference between those games and every other game we played this entire cycle?
But see, that's where Pete, we all get thrown into this little bucket. Like, we somehow think it's going to be a cakewalk. No, none of us believe it's supposed to be a cakewalk, but I do expect at least a tie at Panama. Is that too much to ask, Pete?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. And not just that, I think what we also expect is a cohesive performance, right?
Right.
It's one thing if you go out to Panama, okay, and you batter them for 90 minutes. You're creating chances. You've got the ball. Their goalkeeper makes 9 saves. You hit the post twice. You have a penalty shout not given, and then they hit you on the counter. You look at that and you go, that can happen sometimes in football, right? In soccer. Like, it happens. But your performance is encouraging. And I think that's really the issue that we've seen with this team all year long, is that despite winning trophies and, you know, winning a lot of games, the performances have never looked very good, you know, in terms of chance creation and cohesiveness. And, you know, for the longest time, people said, oh, it's because this team is so young. But I think what we're starting to learn, and which I think a lot of us knew from the beginning, was it's not about the team being young. It's about a lot of talented young players being forced to play with players that are nowhere near their level in terms of ability. And that completely stymies your ability to play as a team because your talent levels are just so far apart.
Yeah. And this is not an MLS thing. We have had to emphasize this over and over and over again. We like Matt Turner. We even like Zimmerman. We like Pepe. Those are all MLS players. McKennie was developed by FC Dallas. This is not an anti-MLS theme here. And I hope people can get that through their very thick heads. But I do have to say this. What explains the sort of Dr. I think you guys said this on your show, the Jekyll and Hyde thing that's going on with Greg? Is he just trying too hard, or is he really that arrogant that he thinks he could have just showed up in Panama and played that? What do you think is going on in his head?
I genuinely think, and I shouldn't take credit for this, because this is actually something that a YouTube commenter said in a post-game stream, which really kind of, it's hard to, encapsulate Berhalter in a single sentence. But I think he said that Berhalter is arrogant enough to believe that his tactical ideas are interchangeable no matter who he puts on the field. And I think that is 100% right, and not just, I'll add to that, not just who he puts on the field, but who he's playing against. And I think we saw that against Panama. I'll trot out these MLS lifers out there, and so long as they follow my tactics, which I have sketched out on this whiteboard, then we will win, for I am the tactical, master.
Right.
And that's just not the case, as we saw.
No, it's not. And that starting 11 for Panama should have been acceptable to anybody
No.
right off the bat. And the fact that, and we'll get into this because, well, let's just get into it. So there are some players after this window who might have in another world, not Greg's world, played themselves off of this roster. And I'll mention one, Legit. I'm sure you have others in mind.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And it's not just about his poor performance in this game. He's been poor all year. Bar 45 minutes against Honduras, what has Legit done? He was in Nations League. He was in Gold Cup. He's been in both qualifying rosters. And in all of those, I think 11 or 12 games that he's played now, he has had one good 45 minutes against Honduras, and that's it. Right? Really? No, like that's honestly it. You can't point to any other game where you say Legit had a dominant performance or even a acceptably good performance. And I feel like I was saying this back in May or June. But I think a lot of people are seeing it now. And I don't think it's going to affect it, though. I do think he's going to be back for the November, games because Greg is going to Greg. Mm-hmm. But it's unacceptable. And it's also who we have ahead of him. If you have Gio Reyna, Weston McKennie, Yunus Musa, Luca De La Torre, Gianluca Busio, all there, who can play as those dual eights, then do we have any need for Sebastian Legit?
Yeah, we just leave one of those players at home.
Right. Or force them to play wide to accommodate a guy who doesn't even start for the Galaxy anymore.
I mean, once you start throwing in the players who weren't here, just adding Pulisic and Reyna to the lineup, and you start noticing that all those roster spots are slowly but surely filling in, and those bid players, the Legets, the Roldans, the Areolas, those are getting kind of pushed out. But even then, who knows? Maybe next window, Berhalter decides to bring in 30 and can bring him in anyways,
Or he may leave guys like Busio and Hoppy and De La Torre at home. Like that would not surprise me.
Talking about the Panama game, that was the most frustrating thing in the world to see. We're in need of a goal. We're taking out a winger. Who do we put in this place? We put in Roldan. Of course. Yeah, nothing against Roldan, but I would have much rather have had Hoppy in there for the entire game. But Roldan. And that's the other thing too. They made after Panama, and I say they, because it wasn't just, the Greg himself, but often the mainstream media, the response to fans being upset about that performance was like, well, what did you expect? We had to rotate, right? This sort of straw man argument. And it's not that any of us were really against rotation. I think it was who he rotated, and it was the amount of players that he rotated at the same time. Yes. Right? So it's like, you wanted to rotate. You had Hoppy, you had Richards, you had De La Torre, okay? You had Busio. Ricardo Pepi came off after 16 minutes against Jamaica, so you could have started. You know what I mean? Like this idea that we had to rotate, so we had no choice, is a straw man argument. We're fine with rotation, but you had quality to rotate with, and you didn't use them. Well, if you're looking at those 3 games of this window, you could rotate every single player that was in that Panama game within those 3 games to give people breaks and breathers. You don't need to have wholesale changes, so you don't need a wholesale midfield change. Yeah. Instead, you could have McKinney stayed home. So you start Adams, you start Musa, and you throw in Legit. And then you want to give Adams a break, pull him out the 65th minute, put Acosta in there. But you rotate players that way. You don't do this crazy, we're going into this and 2/3 of the team are brand new to this window.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
And what's crazy is that Areola played the entire 90 minutes against Jamaica, right? Unlike his Aronson, who was pulled off. And then Areola starts again in Panama, puts in an equally poor performance, and was almost about to start against, Costa Rica at home. And then, only an injury took him off.
Oh, that was God.
Soccer gods.
That was the soccer gods speed.
Lightning bolt.
I mean, they came down and they helped us. Listen, I don't wish injury on anybody, but that might have saved Greg's ass, actually. And it was a complete accident because Way had a great game.
3 straight starts. 3 straight starts. How does that happen?
3 straight starts for a guy who, by the way, has 0 goals and 1 assist in his last 14 competitive caps for the U.S. This is an attacking winger.
Yeah. And can you name a winger that is technically, as far as skill-wise, technically and tactically below him in that pool that was there?
No.
I can't either. One. And he's starting all 3 games. It boggles my mind. How does Hoppy not get involved? And again, I hate to revert back to the Panama game because we all talked about it, but Berhalter preached about it in the post presser. He's like, we lacked intensity and heart and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you had Hoppy sitting on the bench the entire fucking game.
Yeah. And you lacked quality is really what it was too.
Yeah.
Those guys are good guys, right? I'm sure, they're all good guys and they're all going to, there was honestly moments that Arriola didn't work that hard against Panama, but let's say for the most part, they will give you a fair amount of hard work. Guys, it's 2021. We have to expect more to play for the national team than just being a hard worker. Otherwise, me and Brett should be out there. I'm like, we'll work hard if you give us a national team jersey. That doesn't, you know what I mean? That doesn't mean we have the quality to play for the national team.
Are you saying I couldn't do it?
Oh, you've talked about how you have two. Derek, you've talked about how you've had 3 bad knees, which is weird because you only have 2. So,
Peter North might have a job for you, Derek, if you work.
Well, I do have some skills in that area. All right, that's enough of that. All right, so
careful, your Uncle Rocco checks may not clear.
Peter North might not send us in a check
in order for you to get the money, all you have to do is sow discontent between all the fan base. So not us. So
exactly,
we get starring roles in movies. Hey,
it's so funny. It's so funny because I grew up a New York Cosmos fan, right?
Oh, okay.
So
I was trail.
I was just a little kid when I went and watched Pele play and Beckenbauer, and man, I was a huge Cosmos fan, and that was kind of my intro to soccer. Although I started at 5 years old, but the other thing that I was going to bring up actually, because
before you jump into that, I'm going to flat out state this: Zoom's fucking up again, and it's telling me I only have 10 more minutes. So we have about 9 minutes of Zoom time on this call left. So, and we can always jump back on, but you said you only had 45 minutes, Pete. So
yeah, I got
let's roll us in.
Hey, you guys are going to make me do a lot of editing tonight. Well,
be a 20-minute episode by the end of it.
All right, so we're heading into the next window. What changes for Greg? Does Greg make any changes? Do we see any changes? Do we see Scally? Do we see Green? No, we're not going to see Green. I'll let you answer that.
What about Miazga?
Yeah, I think Scally, maybe there's a possibility we see him if he continues to perform for Mönchengladbach. If there's anything we saw in this camp, it is the drop-off from our first-choice fullbacks to everyone else. Yedlin is not terrible, right? But the drop-off from him and Dest from attacking and even defending quality is huge.
Yes.
And, Yedlin probably will still be in the roster and probably deserves to be over a guy like Shaq Moore or Reggie Campbell at this point. But the drop-off from A-Rob to George Bello, massive. Shaq Moore was also really poor against Panama. And you've got a guy like Joe Scally who's performing week in and week out, for a Bundesliga team. You have to think he's got to be there, right?
Yep.
I think he will. Greg said he talked to him. They like him a lot. I think November he'll be in. I don't think we'll see Green, and I don't think we'll see Miazga. Miazga is persona non grata for Greg, and nobody knows why. I know there's jokes about some canine-related violence.
Do you know who started those jokes?
Was it you guys?
Yes.
Oh, that's where it came from. I actually was in a group. I was like, does anybody know where this dog rumor came from? Like, who started this?
Totally us.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. Miazga now performing in a top 3 league in the world. Hard to understand why he's not getting called up. I understand that he hasn't always been the best performer, right?
Yep.
But neither has McKenzie.
No, McKenzie has not covered himself in glory or even competence in a lot of ways.
Well, neither has Brooks, for that matter. Brooks hasn't been that consistent either.
No, and Brooks should be in the roster, but he should definitely be feeling some heat for his his performances. And we'll see how he does. In the next game is against Mexico, who are already 3 points ahead of us in this group.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll see Julian Green. I honestly think that Sebastian Lletget and Acosta and Roldan will all be there. I really believe that.
Yeah, that's really tragic. And I understand that Julian Green's having a really rough season of it. And, he's been riding some pine lately, too, for Greuther Fürth. So, I understand maybe if you use that reason, but that's not the reason Greg ever gives. And he just
verticality.
Oh God, yeah, don't.
but also, it's like, would Lletget be starting for Greuther Fürth in the Bundesliga? No. Like, if Lletget was playing for Greuther Fürth, he'd be with the reserves. And so, would that then be enough for us to not call him up? It's just like the comparison of levels is what's so funny. People say, "Oh, he's not playing." And it's like, okay, he's not. That is correct. but neither would a lot of these guys, you know?
Yeah, and Leggett doesn't even always start for the Galaxy.
No, he's been riding. And if you can't even start in MLS, you should be nowhere near the national team.
That never seemed to bother Greg with Jonathan Lewis.
Lewis, yeah.
No.
I mean, it just didn't bother him. He's like, fuck you guys. I like this kid, and I'm going to just call him up.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Merit is not. But I guarantee you, and I'm not the biggest, I am not a Jurgen Klinsmann fan, but I guarantee you that he would have called Joe Scally up for this last window that he just missed and got him integrated. At least got him integrated at the very least. Brett, how much time we got left here?
About 5.
All right. So let's try to make some, can we make a starting 11 for the game against Mexico? Would you be cool with that, Pete?
Sure.
All right. Let's try that. Is it going to be Turner or Stefan?
Good question, right? I mean, in the game, we saw definitely Stefan is an upgrade with his feet, right? He did have 1 or 2 balls that he played out of bounds.
Yep.
You know, but you can see when it comes to building out of the back, Stefan is an upgrade with his feet. But that goal he conceded, whether he was unsighted or not, it was close enough to him that he has to get down and make that save. And I think you go with the safe pair of hands for Mexico. And I think that's Matt Turner.
Yeah, I think I would too. Brett, I didn't see a real massive upgrade with Stefan. What's your call?
Well, he wasn't really tested, in all honesty. I don't know. Well, you know, Mexico's going to be pressing up against Turner throughout the match. So if we play it back to him, he's going to have to be playing it out quickly. So I can understand why he might play Stefan, but I would pick Turner over Stefan right now. I would have picked him over for Costa Rica.
I think in this thing we're doing what we want, not what Greg wants.
I'm sticking with Turner then. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think Greg will get Turner too, though. I think that just Turner's been a safe pair of hands, and Greg will have him not play out of the back under pressure because he knows he can't.
Exactly. Yeah. Left back, I don't think there's any discussion at all. It's Anthony Robinson, so we can move on there. I do think maybe in the center backs we might have more of a discussion, but I'll let you start, Pete, with your center backs.
I think he's probably going to go Brooks and Robinson. I just don't think he trusts Chris Richards, as we saw in this camp. Zimmerman's a weird one because he wasn't in the roster and ended up playing 3 games and starting 2.
And wearing the captain's band.
And wearing it's a strange one with Greg. I don't know what's going on there.
What the fuck?
I think it'll be Brooks and Robinson is my guess, you know, but we'll see. I mean, the thing about Greg is he's hard to predict, you know?
Yeah. I mean, we've been doing a pretty good job because we do this mind meld thing with Greg.
Okay. You do a pretty good job. I suck balls at it.
Okay. Yeah. But I've been getting deep inside Greg's ass.
You got 3 minutes. Lightning round. Let's roll it.
All right. Lightning round. God damn it.
I'm going with Brooks and Robinson as well, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, me too. Right back, Dest. You know, that's easy.
Yeah.
Let's go with the 6. That's obvious too. It's Tyler
midfield. Same thing.
Yeah.
And McKenzie, and then who? Musa, right?
Musa, absolutely.
Yeah. It has to be.
How could you not?
Especially against Mexico. And I'll put my caveat here. I think we need to find a way to transition Gio Reyna into an attacking midfielder for us because I think he makes us better in that position. But against Mexico, I have no problem going with the tried and trusted MMA, trio, and Gio playing right wing.
That's fair. That's fair. But I don't think it'll happen. But I like the fact that, again, Brett's been saying
I've been talking about it for a while. So.
That's Brett's preferred thing too. But I just keep telling Brett, dream on, brother. It ain't happening.
Dream on.
I don't think that Berhalter will ever play Reyna as first of all, we don't play CAM. That's not a position we play. And he likes his 8s to be box to box 8s. And sometimes he likes to drag one of those 8s back into a double 6 role, as we saw this weekend. So not this weekend. What the fuck did it's 2 days ago.
2 days. 2 days there.
Lost. Yeah. All right. Excuse me there. All right. And so we got 2 wingers to pick. And if they're healthy, I'll let you do it, Pete.
I mean, it's Pulisic and Gio, right?
Yeah. This is getting easier now, isn't it?
But it sucks for Aronson because Aronson's been so instrumental with our attack in general. I mean, you guys brought it up yesterday. He has 5 goals and 7 assists, 8 assists or whatever in 11, 12 games.
Yeah.
So he'll be great off the bench, I guess.
So do we see maybe Greg trying maybe Aronson in the midfield again? Maybe, I don't know, Pete.
I would doubt it. Not over
so.
Musa or McKennie, and
not
also
against Mexico.
Not against Mexico. And remember, against El Salvador, Brendan Aronson was not good in midfield. You know?
Yeah, he wasn't. No, it was not good. So I guess that
there's a lot of not good against El Salvador, though. But
I mean, it's sad that Aronson won't get to start, but he might probably start the next game against Jamaica. So
probably,
but
we also have to get used
seconds.
to understanding we're going to have quality players on the bench. If we want to be a world power like France or Germany or Italy or Spain, you're going to have top players on the bench, and that's part of being really good.
Yeah, and it's a nice problem to have because Pete, you've been around long enough. I mean, we're older than you, but we've been around a lot. I mean, it was painful through the years. If you had to go to the bench, it was a painful decision to have to make. It's not as painful now, and that's okay.
Like 40 seconds left, if that.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Pepe starting 9 for me.
Okay, Pete. Yeah. All right, Pete. God damn it! If Zoom didn't fucking sabotage this show, we'd
only happens every now and then, though. That's a weird thing.
I know. I don't understand it, but we have 4 minutes left. I want to thank you for coming on the show.
No problem.
And I want you to keep up whatever the fuck you're doing because it is working. And I know we poke fun at you on occasion, but it's all in good fun. And I hope you missed all the shows where we do.
We poke fun of ourselves too. So.